Korea is typically known for its bright lights and its big cities. It's one of the most popular nations in the world right now for tourists to visit. It's known for K-pop and K-drama, and it's known as one of the most exciting countries in the world. But the truth is, there's also a darker side of Korea that a lot of people don't know about. And today, on this cold and dark and gloomy day, I'd like to shed a little bit of light on that. Now, if you are Korean, perhaps you're ethnically Korean, you were born and raised here, or perhaps you grew up overseas. Maybe you're not even fully Korean, but you have a little bit of Korean in you. There's something that all Koreans share in common. It's a deep ailing, a deep aching of the soul, a communal aching of the soul. And this is something called Han. So what is Han? Well, Han is something that all Koreans share in common. It's something in the Korean soul, in the Korean psyche actually, from the beginning of Korean history. I guess the best way to explain it is through the song Arirang. A lot of people know Arirang, but they don't exactly know what it means. People know either the song, or some people know it as their favorite K-barbecue restaurant in K-Town. But it's not about food, it's not necessarily just about music, but Ari, in Arirang, it literally means a very deep aching, deep within the soul. Lang means song. So put together, literally, it means a song of deep sorrow. This is like perhaps the most famous song in all of Korea. And it's because everyone shares this deep aching together. I'm not an expert in ancient Korean history, nor am I an expert in modern Korean history either. But if you want to understand what is Korean Han, one of the things that you have to look back upon is in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And this is during the period of Japanese colonization of Korea. At that time, Japan came in, they took over Korea. So Koreans, they were not allowed to use their Korean names. They were all given Japanese names. They were told to speak in the Japanese language, take on Japanese customs and culture. And so they were really trying to get rid of the Korean identity at the time. And so that was perhaps one of the most difficult periods in all of recent Korean history. So the Han of the modern Korean people, I think, begins there. But then in 1945, after World War II, independence came to Korea. And so you would think that Korea would be in a much better state. However, one of the things that happened was that the superpowers at that time, actually the United States and the Soviet Union, thought that Korea was not able to govern itself. So they divided into two different Koreas, governed by the Soviet Union up north and the United States down south. And so even though we were in celebration of independence from Japan, truth is we weren't really free. And then something happened in 1950. The North, which was ruled by a leader named Kim Il-sung, appointed by the Soviet Union, he decided that he wanted to reunite the North and the South. And so he invaded the South. He came across the 38th parallel. He decided that he was going to take his North Korean troops and they were going to come down and invade the South. And that was the start of the Korean War. Now, the war only lasted 3 years. A lot of blood was shed at that time. And the truth is, even though we're not at active war right now, Korea never had a peace treaty. So technically, we're still at war. It's nothing that people live with every day, but it's still a reminder that we're a divided nation. Now, another thing about the sorrow of the Korean people is that after the war, in the 1960s and 1970s and 1980s, Korea was very poor. It was poverty-stricken. And however, in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, aggressive economic reform or development plans were put in place by then President Park Chung-hee. And even history has different opinions about whether he was a good president who grew this country, developed this country economically, financially, or whether he was a dictator president. But regardless of which side you may lean on, Korea actually grew tremendously over that period. They call it the miracle of the Han, or the miracle of the Han River. And so because of that, Korea has become one of the greatest economic powers that it is today. But the Korean development was not just about economic policies and government supporting certain companies, the Jebo companies, to rise up above poverty and lead this country, but it was about the Korean people, the grit, the hard-working spirit. People be working tirelessly without end. And it's the spirit of the Korean people that really allowed this country to grow into what it is today. So you can't deny that. Now, because we don't live in poverty anymore, and even though we are not united with North Korea, we don't live necessarily under the threat of North Korean invasion. I think a lot of the world thinks that we're always under threat, but that's not how it feels like here in the South. But because of that, a lot of people nowadays, they feel like we don't live with Han anymore. But I disagree. I think we live with it all the time. We just don't realize it. Now, what I mean by that is, there were recent studies by the OECD that says that Korea, or Koreans, are the unhappiest people in the world. The suicide rates are some of the highest among all OECD nations. Depression rates are super high. Now, since the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, all of Korea, the greatest focus about Korea is to make a lot of money, to be successful, not only personally, but to be a successful country, to be known among all the nations of the world in that light. But because of that, that mentality, that psyche of being successful financially, economically, that's still strongly ingrained within the Korean people. And it's actually taken a real hard toll on society today. Now, you see it in every generation, even among the young people of high school students, even elementary school students. This hagwon culture, these academies that kids go to after school, even from a very young age, even from like kindergarten, is to try to, parents trying to get their kids a leg up on the competition so that they can go to good universities, get good jobs at major conglomerates, so they can make a lot of money. Even from age 5 and 6, kids, they can't be kids. Teenagers in Korea, among all the teenagers in the world, among OECD nations, they have some of the greatest depression rates and some of the highest suicide rates. It's because they deal with such strong competition every day to get the good grades, right? How you rank among your peers. And if you don't rank high enough, that's really huge stress. You get stress from society, from your teachers, from your parents. Nowadays, there are actually websites that kids can go into that encourage suicide. I mean, what is this? What kind of world have we gotten into where kids can't be kids anymore? So yeah, from a very young age, the Han is still very strong in the Korean people. But then you would think that if they get into college, that things would be smooth sailing from there, but that's not the case, I think college sometimes is a little bit of a refuge for some of the Korean youth, some of the young people here. But then after college, what then? Korea has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world for young people in their 20s, even their early 30s. So even after you graduate from college, nothing is guaranteed. And even then, you're lost trying to find what you're going to do with your life. So even there, just the pressures of unemployment, trying to find your place in this world, is still really strong. And even for the working class, you know, even if you do have a job in your 20s and 30s, it's not the easiest thing in the world right now. There's always the threat of competition. And a lot of times it's not merit-based, but it's about who you know in relationship. How well can you kiss up? How well can you drink at company dinners? Now, I did hear that things have gotten better in the last few years, but still, it's not the easiest way to, you know, people complain that, or society complains that younger people nowadays, people in their 20s and 30s, they don't want to get married anymore. They don't want to have kids anymore. But in a way, I don't blame them. I kind of get it, because society is so harsh. Competition is so hard. I mean, you can't even support yourself. Why would you want to get married and try to support a family? Why would you want to have kids? Now, of course, you know, I wish it wasn't like that. You know, I wish people could get married, have kids, because you know, that's another thing. You know, children are our future, and so if Korea wants to grow, people need to have kids. But you know, that's another video for another day. But because life is so hard, they're just looking for different ways to survive. Now, I've heard from people in their 20s and 30s that, you know, when you get to your 40s and 50s, I'm sure things will get so much better because you've established yourself, but that's not the case. There are a lot of people in their 50s that they worry about what they're going to do with their future. Because at one time, they were very important and influential people in their companies or in society. After a certain age, you're no longer needed. And so you become expendable. They'll be lucky to be able to work as a security guard at an apartment complex or a building, bagging groceries at E-Mart. And so even for them, you know, at 50, you're no longer important in society. And you live with a very deep sorrow. And even when it comes to the elderly in Korea, they still live with deep sorrow, even a little depression nowadays, because society is so hard for their children that they're so busy making money, making their own livelihoods, that they don't come visit anymore. They don't take care of their elders, not like we used to. So with that, a lot of elderly people, they just kind of hide themselves away in their small one-room apartments. A lot of them, sadly, they commit suicide at a very late age because they don't want to be a burden on society. So why am I sharing all of this on this channel, The New Koreans, you know? This channel is about expats and foreigners and returnees to Korea. It's because this is part of our reality as well. It's something that we shouldn't be blind to. If we want to be part of this country, if we want to love this country, then we got to realize that these are some of the things in society that are going on today. And we can't be ignorant of it. We can't feed into the problem either. But somehow, you know, even in our own spheres of influence, we can make a difference. Man, the rain's coming down right now. I'm going to try to find shelter as fast as I can. So how do we make a difference? Well, I think the first part is to be informed. Just know that this is what's going on in society today, in Korea today. But also, let's be more loving. Let's be more caring. You know, one of the things that's missing in society today is love for your neighbors. Because life is so hard. You got to take care of yourself first. That's kind of the mentality. You know, Korea's always been, you know, a communal society, taking care of one another. But because life has become so hard, people are very busy taking care of themselves. So for us, I think one of the first things that we can do is be someone who cares and shows compassion and love for others first. It doesn't seem like much, but in our own spheres of influence, it can make a big difference in someone's life. All right, the rain is really starting to come down on this gloomy day. I hope I was able to shed a little bit of light on things in Korea. It's not meant to be a doom and gloom type of message today. It's actually supposed to be a message of hope, because there's a lot of hope. We have to have hope. So with that said, if you like this video, share it with others. Subscribe, comment below. Let me know what you think about the state of Korea today and how we, as new Koreans, can make a difference to shape a more beautiful, a more loving new Korea going forward in the future. I see you guys next time. Peace. I'm gonna have to get out of this rain.